back. Feeling a little bit better finally. If those that have missed my Saturday show, I'm a little under the weather. It was the first day I actually started feeling better. A little bit behind on the videos, but don't worry, we're going to catch up this week. Well, starting off with the Rules and Public Policy Committee. Apparently, this is going to talk about the Marion County Sheriff's Union Agreement. So let's just get into it.
Good evening, everybody. This is the meeting of the Rules and Public Policy Committee on December, what is today? 17th. Thank you, sirs and ladies. And welcome. We're going to start with introductions. Down to our lower left, Councilor Dilk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Dilk, District 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian Mowry, District 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andy Nielsen, District 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Carlos Perkins, District 6.
Doctor of Ministry. Hey, if you're having a heart attack, Carlo Perky is not the person to see. And I see Allie Brown dressed up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Renee Allen, District 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allie Brown, District 10.
You know, for all of you future politicians out there or anybody that wants to run for office, even local office like city council, when you go to a meeting, don't dress like Allie Brown, all right? Don't have the sunglasses on your head. You are a professional. You're supposed to be a professional. Don't dress like a slob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leroy Robinson, District 1.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Lewis, District 5.
Thank you, councilors. Good evening. My name is Dan Boots, District 3, and I have the honor of chairing this committee this evening in the stead of President Bob Osley, and we're going to start out with Proposal 380, which directs our committee to review and prepare a report pertaining to the fiscal impact statement associated with the Marion County Sheriff Union Agreement with the American Federation of State County.
Yeah, did Boots get divorced or what? He has no ring on.
County and Municipal Employees Local 262. And Controller Abigail Hanson is here this evening to lead us through this.
Oh, wonderful.
It's all yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, my presentation is going to cover both proposals, so I would like to present on both of them at the same time, if you don't mind.
That'd be fine. Just let me read. Proposal 382 directs our same committee to review and prepare a report pertaining to the fiscal impact statement associated with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department Union Agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police.
Okay, so this is the FOP and the sheriff, or this is the IMPD and the sheriff's office.
It's all yours.
Thank you. So, as you said, I'm Controller Abby Hansen, and I'm presenting the final two fiscal impact statements for the union negotiations that have tentative agreements. I'm presenting in accordance with the Municipal Code Section 291-610, specifically for the Sheriff's Office civilian employees that are covered by AFSCME and IMPD law enforcement officers represented by FOP. Finally,
before Abby talking, I will have the report in the description below.
OFM is continuing to work with the Public Defender's Office on a new agreement for their staff, but because it's a new contract, we're not necessarily under the same deadlines that a contract of expiring, so we're not quite finished yet, still working on that. I quickly wanted to review the same funding plans that I presented during the first round of fiscal impact statements in November. First, the 2025 budget includes a 3% raise for all union employees, and this allowed OFM to get a portion of the funding in the budgets, and we also left around 3% of our income taxes unbudgeted, so that we had funds set aside in anticipation that of the contracts that we knew were coming. We do anticipate there to be an additional appropriation at the end of 2025, instead of coming to you now asking to adjust the 2025 budget or do something early in the year, we intend to do that at the end of the year so that we are basing it on actual reality instead of these assumptions that we have at this point in time for the fiscal impacts. I also believe that we will be able to work collaboratively to ensure that we live within our means in 2025. These are big contracts. It's a lot of money. But we felt that this was vital from both the management and the labor side to ensure that we have the resources to provide what are really our most basic public services. And then finally, for the years beyond 2025, we had rough projections of property and income taxes, what our growth would be based on our historical trends, and so we used that when we were considering what we could afford into the future. The first proposal is $380 between AFSCME and the Sheriff's Office, representing their civilian employees, which covers around 220 positions. I'm going to focus my presentation on the provisions that we agreed to, and the associated anticipated costs are listed in the table for each year of the contract. This agreement is from 2025 to 2027. Their salary increases were across the board and will be 4% in 2025, 3% in 26, and 4% in 2027. They also added a longevity schedule that will match the detention deputies, and it begins in the 4th year of employment. So they didn't have anything necessarily rewarding them for tenure, so this is something to incentivize longer time with the agency. It will be $308 annually in 2025, and then that will increase by the same percentage in 2026 and 2027 that the salary does. We added a perfect attendance provision that will allow staff who take no sick time, unpaid leave, or have disciplinary absences to receive 1 perfect attendance day, which is an extra benefit leave day, and that they're eligible for that every quarter. And then finally, we increased the shift differential from 25 cents an hour to 50 cents for the second shift and 85 cents for the third shift. Our second proposal is $382 between the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 86 and IMPD. This contract is from 2025 to 2028. Damn. This contract is really had a major change in redefining salary structure for IMPD. In the past, base salaries were set for a police officer on their 3rd year of employment. And then they received an annual negotiated increase and an annual longevity increase. In 2024, that longevity increase was $395 a year. During negotiations, it was identified that paying people an additional $395 for another year of service wasn't having the desired effect on retention or rewarding people for that additional year of experience on the job.
Turns out an extra $400 a year just for being on the IMPD wasn't enough.
Surrounding communities, specifically Carmel and the state police, have restructured their salaries to be a matrix where salaries are set for each year of service, and they aren't necessarily the same. There isn't necessarily the same differentiation between year 3 and year 4, or between year 4 and year 5. It's all kind of, it could be more like a bell curve, or it's a little more dependent on where we're having the issues. So our FOP agreement does the same thing. If you refer to the proposal, there are tables in the attachment at the back, which actually outline, so if you're a 10-year, I can actually walk through one. Well, I don't have page numbers, that would have been helpful, but in attachment A, the very first table. So, for example, if you are a 10-year officer today, you make $81,739. In 2025, you'll make $90,400.
Damn.
If you're a 10-year officer, not some, yes. Yes, I apologize. So on the actual fiscal impact statement, yes, there is a table that shows what a patrol officer would make. Okay. Yes, correct. So a 10-year officer today makes $81,739. In 2025, a 10-year officer will make $90,400. And then a 10-year officer in 2026 will make $91,456, and then it goes up to $95,218 in 2027. So the other thing is, if you look down the table, what you receive isn't necessarily consistent from one year to the next. And frankly, that was intentional for us to try and address the places that we saw an issue. So one thing, if you go back to my presentation, you'll notice that the longevity number here is negative. And that's because we're not providing longevity separate from people's salary. So to understand the impacts to take-home pay, the salary and longevity line should be considered together. This table here, the table on the screen, is based on the assumption of having 1,743 officers. And we have discussed during the budget process, that's not where we are today. However, we chose to use this staffing level for our analysis for two different reasons. First, it is the staffing level that is agreed upon within the contract. And then secondly, financially, the cost of our vacant positions and our overtime costs are almost the same. And overtime costs are much harder for us to project. And so using full staffing was a better projection for us to feel like we were fully capturing the breadth of what this contract could cost. Sorry to jump back to the matrix. I did want to at least explain that in 2025, the salary increase from 24 to 25 is 8% if you have been here for anywhere between 3 years and 8 years. If you have been here with the department for longer than 8 years, the salary increase ranges from 9% to 19%, with the highest percentage being at the bottom part, the more tenured part of the matrix. So down like in year 25, they're seeing the biggest increase.
That's crazy. You got to remember too, like a lot of the officers that have been here for a long time, they're not really in the field. They're doing office work. So you have someone who's been in there for 25 years, making 150 grand, and they're just doing paperwork. I mean, hey, you know, back to blue and whatever, but we got people that are on the field, that are in the field, beat cops that are feeling like they're not appreciated that much. So if you were to give anybody a raise, it'd be those people. Like those people are fine in the office, you know. they're getting a good pension too.
In 2026, the increase is 3% for people who have tenure between year 3 and year 9, and then only a 1% increase for years of service at 10 or longer. In 27 and 28, there's a 4% increase for years of service up to 13, and then a 3% increase for 13 and longer years of service. So I can repeat that again if anyone, but and you can do the math to figure that out, but it is kind of, it varies year to year, and it's just a little bit different. There is a 10% rank differential between patrol officers, sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. So
there we go.
Again, trying to incentivize the promotion, not just staying in your position, but, you know, a financial incentive to want to be promoted. This contract also shifts 3% of the pension contribution from the city paying it to the employee paying it, and those savings were reallocated to salary increases.
Oh.
The contract provides a $2,600 clothing allowance to each officer, which will be paid in 2 installments in June and December.
Why?
In IMPD, officers are provided with a uniform or a few pieces of uniform at the beginning of their service when they join the force, but the department doesn't have a replacement system, so this will offset the out-of-pocket expenses that the officers incur to keep their uniforms up to standard. It also implemented a $2,000 bilingual pay, which matches our city policy for officers that can serve as interpreters. And this estimate assumes there are 100 officers that would be eligible for this program, but that's really just an estimate at this point. We don't have a good understanding yet of the breadth of that program.
You know, $200,000 isn't it? Honestly, if you look at $50 million in salary in 2028, $200,000 if you can speak a different language, that bad.
And then finally, shift differential and FTO and DTO, which stand for Field Training Officer and Detective Training Officer. the amount or the pay that is received for working a different shift or serving in these, capacities, is tied to a percentage of pay. So because pay is going up, these are also the hourly rates associated are also increasing. With that, I will be happy to take any questions that you may have about the finances of the contracts.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I just had a quick question, particularly for our longer tenured officers. How does the change in longevity pay affect their pensions? Like the amount that we're going to see their pensions grow, or does it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Pension is based on a 25-year officer's, well, technically by state statute, it's the highest. It's complicated. It's essentially a 25-year officer is what the pension is, and so it's going from $87,000 to $104,000.
Thank you for your presentation. I got lost in the numbers, so let's go back to the first year of the contract, 2025. I have there's a range between 3 to 19% in terms of to 18%.
Yes.
Okay. Help me a little bit to kind of the rationale behind that, large increase. And I understand that the greater years of service is kind of where we're leading towards 18%. But help us a little bit as to what helped us to get to that point.
I would say it was very much an iterative process. I mean, everything about we sign non-disclosure agreements about the specifics of what's happening at the negotiating table, but I think it would be safe to say that we landed on this decision that we wanted to go to a matrix model, and so then we kind of went back and forth on understanding where we should be allocating those dollars. The one thing to know is today an officer after 25 years of service continues to receive longevity. This new proposal, they're not receiving that anymore. So if you work 25 years or you work 40 years, you're getting paid the same amount of money. So while it is a big jump, it's not necessarily everyone is going to see that same jump.
After 25 years. I think he's asking about, I would say that he's probably asking why is there such a big range?
Tell me if I didn't fully answer your question.
You did. I have another question, but it might be for the chief, just in terms of the impact that will have maybe on our long-term officers that are serving more than 25 years.
Yes,
Good
Chief
evening.
Bailey.
Is it okay to talk,
course.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Make sure I follow the rules. I think what we're seeing here is what we've done over the past 4 years since 2019 is really look at the things we can impact outside of the contract negotiations. So year 1 and year 2 of a police officer's career, the salary is dictated by the agency. And so we went from approximately $42,000 in 2016 starting pay up to $70,000 and $72,000 in year 2. And we had signing bonuses over the last several years. So those officers that are in that 4 to 5 year range have been basically taken care of substantially from $42,000 to $70,000 over the course of their career. What we heard from our employees was that, what about me? Because under the old system, you maxed out basically at third-year patrol officer, and the only raises that are significant bumps that you got beyond the third year were longevity increases. And so the focus, and my understanding, not having been at the table specifically, but through my representation, is that we needed to take care of those officers between 10 and 20 years, specifically that 15-year range, the officers that we're trying to retain. So it's not about just always about bringing officers in, it's about how do we retain the officers that we have. And frankly, we had to compete with Carmel and state police. And so that 15-year range was the sweet spot in both the state police contract and the Carmel contract. That's where they saw their biggest increases, and that's how they shifted that pay.
There we go.
on what happens after 25 years?
I didn't answer that question, I'm sorry. Those people, even at that 25 beyond, are at the higher end of this increase, and so we think that they'll be more than compensated for their work.
And they're like desk jockeys anyway half the time, right? Like, you receive 25-year patrol officers. Like, this isn't Lethal Weapon, you know? Maybe they're detectives, but like, you think they're beat cops? 25-year beat cops?
Chief, if you may, just so, will they get a COLA or anything, 25 years and beyond?
The increases they'll get will be in year 2, 3, and 4
I'm sorry,
of the
I'm
contract.
talking 25 and above.
Yeah, they're whatever do you all have a copy of the matrix in your packet?
Yeah.
That 25-year at the bottom of it, that's what they'll make. They'll be making the same amount of money as someone that has 35 years on.
Okay, so there is
So there's no COLA adjustment?
No.
Above 25 years?
Yeah, most of them are going from approximately, let's see, 78,000 and then probably $10,000 in longevity, so 88,000 to 104,000, so, or whatever that number is off the top
Okay.
there.
And then sorry, do you have another question? Just a quick, the dip in the staffing caused by the 2 years of non-hiring, where does that fit in this flow of which officers were like right before the hiring freeze and which officers in year rank were right behind the
I believe that was, 10, 11, 12, around
10,
there?
11, 12?
So about 14, 15-year officers, and so after that would be, 12-year, 10, 12-year officers, yes.
And do you believe just naturally that once this it's the opposite of a bulge, a dip as the years go by, that will naturally flush out of the system and our numbers will increase?
It'll take a substantial amount of time. I mean, even from that, it just because of the nature of our business and how long it takes to train officers. If we were not, sufficiently training our cops, then we could fill the ranks much quicker, or not having standards that are required for people to, enforce the law and carry guns and badges. So it will still be a period of time. We think we'll retain people more with this contract because we will be one of the highest paid in the state of Indiana, and people are committed to our department, and they'll see that the city is committed to them. And not only that, but there have been changes to the DROP program, which is the Deferred Retirement Option Program, which allows officers to go from 3 to 5 years deferring that retirement. And so with the pension increases in this, we think people will stay longer, or we've already had people that were scheduled to leave next year that are going to extend for 2 more years because of this contract.
Let me break it down for you. The reason why so many police are leaving is this is a morale thing, in my opinion. Pay is one part of it. Yeah, I would say pay is like 35% of it. Nobody becomes a police officer because of money. All right, like maybe if they were thinking to themselves, well, I could have a really good pension, I'll have a really good retirement, but like I would say the majority of cops get into the field because they want to make a difference in their area, whether they live there or they live outside of it, but they want things to get better. And this is a morale problem. And I've talked to police officers. I've been on multiple ride-alongs. I talk to these people, I talk to the cops. And when you have a prosecutor that refuses to do his job, when you have a prosecutor's office that's filled with maniacs that want to let criminals go or give them a slap on the wrist or give them a probation that they will most likely break, that really reduces the morale of the police. When you have judges and magistrates that want to give low bonds, when you have judges and magistrates that dismiss charges or like we're okay with plea deals with some maniac, some crazy person that had multiple offenses, and then they're back on the street within a couple of hours or a couple of days, it reduces the morale. So no matter how much money that the police are making, they would probably take a pay cut if they knew that the police department or not so much the police department, but the prosecutor's office and the courts actually did their job. I would almost guarantee you that. But this is the conversation that not only Chris Bailey is afraid to have, but Dan Boots and Carly Perkins, the entire Democrat establishment in Indianapolis. And I would even say the Republicans, too, that they're afraid to have this conversation out in the open. Definitely Chris Bailey. If we had more open conversations of why this is happening and start pointing the fingers of why it's happening, we could solve a whole lot of shit.
Great. Thank you, Chief, and we appreciate everything you do. We appreciate what your assistant chiefs are here as well, so please
I do not believe Dan Boots at all.
keep up the good work.
If I could just say one thing, Deputy Chief Valerie Cunningham sat at that table with Abby and the rest of the city team, hours upon hours upon hours working on this. So I want to make sure I recognize her as a true architect to this what you have in front of you, in cooperation with the city negotiators in the FOP.
Sure.
Which is
Chief, I think Councilman.
One more question.
I'll just stay here.
What percentage of the force right now would you say are 25 years or more service?
I could look that up or have Deputy Chief Cunningham look it up and get back to you from the last staffing report.
200.
200 officers.
Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Nielsen.
This is for the controller, so Chief. So Controller Reardon, Hanson, I'm sorry, and my apologies. So can you remind me, so I don't sit on public safety. So in 2025, in the 2025 adopted budget, was the rescission of the longevity pay reflected? No, we were assuming, because you were in negotiations, that longevity was moving on. Okay, so why would the longevity pay, why is that flat over the out years?
You're saying because basically you would assume it to grow because people continue to grow.
Yeah.
That's fair. We just didn't do the analysis that way, but it's absolutely fair that the reverse could be true.
Okay, so in the 25 adopted budget, the salary, as you were kind of walking us through, the salary and the longevity pay was about 35 million. So there's nothing on the accounting side, right, that's going to come in play outside of just knowing what the cleanup is at the end of next year.
Correct.
The way it's all allocated and it's flowing through. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Why don't you turn your microphone on?
I think we will appropriate all of the money that I have set aside, and I'm hoping that it's not any additional, in addition to that. Yeah, hang on. I put it on one of these pieces of paper. 15 million is what was set aside.
Any other questions? Hearing none. This committee hereby accepts the reports for the Sheriff's Department under 380 and as well as the IMPD under 382. Anything further needed, Council? Motion, second. Adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Have a good holiday.
No, it's have a good Christmas, you commie fuck. Well, there we go. That was an easy peasy one. Got Parks and Rec coming up this week, too. I don't understand it. You have Dilk. I know Dilk and Mowry aren't going to do anything. They're not going to say anything. If anybody from the Republican Party is listening to me right now, which I know some of you are, you need to start having an open conversation and start pointing the blame. Chris Bailey is not going to say anything. He's worried about just keeping his job as chief of police. I think he's too much of a fucking coward to actually start talking about why the morale, why the police are leaving. I don't believe that it's all about pay, by the way. There are plenty of people, there are plenty of police officers that would take a little bit less pay to feel a little bit more safe, or to feel like Not only does the council or for smaller areas, the at large or whatever they're called, if they felt like the courts and the prosecutor's office were doing the best job possible and making sure that criminal scumbags were off the street and stayed off the street, police retention would not be a problem. I can guarantee you that. And when this next mayor's race comes out, I can guarantee you, though, this problem is going to continue. There's no matter how much money you throw at this problem, it's never going to be fixed. It's always going to be this issue when you have dipshit, racist people like Renee Allen and Carly Perkins up there, Leroy Robinson and Maggie Lewis, these racist pieces of shit that do not care about keeping criminals off the streets when they're beholden to people like Ryan Mears or these scumbag judges like Mark Stoner. I think he's retiring, though, or that bitch Jennifer Prince Harrison. When you get these liberal people, I want to say something else. When you get these liberal shitheads out of the positions that they're in, and you get common sense judges and magistrates, or even people in the prosecutor's office, this whole problem will be solved within like a year. We have a brand new jail. Use it. Anyway, rant over. Until next time.